Someday, we'll definitely build a perfect house for us. We made that promise before we got married, but the dream of owning a house, let alone our happiness, got completely messed up thanks to my mother-in-law. It was unbelievable how my husband changed drastically too. When I thought my difficult life was going to persist, I made a choice to take action. I'm Reese, a 28-year-old. My husband, Victor, is 5 years older than me. We recently celebrated our first anniversary. We met through a dating app. I was initially skeptical, but I was drawn to his sweetness, and our relationship blossomed. I had a strong desire to get married, and he also wanted to settle down, so it was a good match. Initially, we had a loving married life, as I had imagined. However, he started to change after 6 months. The trigger was the divorce of his parents.
Honey, it seems my parents are done for.
Really? I only had a shallow connection with them, so I honestly didn't know how to react. Your dad's working, so he should be fine. But what about your mom?
Oh, it's all good. She'll rent an apartment.
But how will she manage financially? She's been a housewife, right?
We'll support her. Me and you.
Huh? What do you mean? I was in disbelief as he said it so casually.
We need to support my mom. Together.
Oh, wait a minute. Why should we pay for her rent?
She's in trouble, so obviously we must help her. Right?
No, if it were only you, I might understand. But why should I? It makes no sense, does it?
Come on, honey. She'd be grateful, and you'll benefit from this too. I remember you said you didn't want to move in with her before. I'm trying to be understanding and accommodate that.
He was right. I had told him before we got married that I didn't want to live with my in-laws. Even so, I still didn't understand why I had to cover her rent. I stubbornly insisted. I neither want to live with her nor pay her rent. Period. Plus, we're supposed to save money to build our own house.
There's no other way. Things have changed, you know. It's not like I've given up on that either. Right now, my priority is Mom.
You're being irrational. If you want to support her that much, why don't you pay for it yourself?
What? And I have to pay our living expenses? On top of that? It'd wipe out all my spending money. Think about me a little.
He let out a heavy sigh, and then he retreated into the bedroom. What's up with that? Why should I be the one getting scolded? Most of all, what's Heather thinking? It's just not right that she's trying to make me pay her rent. The next day, Victor came back home with her in tow. She put on some fake tears and began pleading. Reese, you heard about my divorce, right? I'm in a tough spot right now. You understand, don't you? Yeah, sure, but when you split up, it was pretty obvious that you'd have a hard time making ends meet, right? But I couldn't take it anymore. I was tired of being with that stubborn man. Even so. Anyway, I moved to a nearby apartment, so I asked you guys to cover the rent for me. Jeez. It was so presumptuous, and I was about to disagree, but Victor intervened. He stood between us and glared at me.
Listen, are you really going to complain when she's desperately asking for help? What's wrong with you?
Why should I be spoken to like that? I'm not working to support her, you know?
Jeez, you're really heartless. You're just a wife, so listen to what I say.
What the heck is that supposed to mean? After that, I continued to be berated by both of them. And eventually, I caved in. I really didn't want her to move in with us, so I reluctantly agreed to pay half of the rent. From then on, she started showing up at our house unannounced almost every day.
Oh, Reese, you're home at last. I'm staying over tonight.
Again? You stayed over the day before too.
Yeah? So what? Anyway, can you make dinner quickly? I'm starving.
Even Victor, who was already back home, chimed in.
Me too. Hurry up.
What's wrong with this mother and son? If they're hungry, why can't they just make something themselves? I'm working too, so why should I take care of them? Heather's audacity didn't stop there. Every time she came over, she would ask me for money.
Hey, Reese, I really want to buy some clothes this month.
Oh yeah? Then why don't you ask Victor to buy them for you?
He needs money for various things, you know. That's why I'm asking you. Please, just $500 would do.
I want to save money too, you know.
Why are you so stingy? You're so cold for a daughter-in-law.
Who demands money from their daughter-in-law in the first place? She's so shameless. Victor, who must have overheard our conversation, intervened.
Hey, you can't even lend a mere $500 when she's in such a tight spot?
A mere $500? It's a lot of money. I'm working my butt off for it, you know?
You're making quite good money, so don't be stingy. You're such a Scrooge.
I barely held back the urge to shout back, "Who's talking?" I knew if I did, it would only escalate further. One evening, Victor brought up an idea out of the blue.
Honey, you've got a pretty good amount of savings, right?
Oh, well. I found his question suspicious, but I responded calmly. I've been saving up for our future home since before we got married.
Right, I'm doing pretty well too. So, how about we build a house now?
Does it mean we're moving out of here? My hesitant question was met with a cheerful smile.
Exactly. Let's find a plot in a nice location. We'll be living there for the rest of our lives, so let's build our perfect home.
Our perfect home? That was something I had wanted for a long time. I wanted to create a lovely house filled with our own preferences. I had always dreamed of it. For me, his proposal sounded so bright and promising. The only way to escape the hell with Heather living nearby was to have a new home far away. I looked him straight in the eyes and answered, I seriously want to consider this. From then on, we started making preparations. We purchased the land we previously had our eyes on, had meetings with construction companies, and juggled those tasks alongside our jobs. Everything seemed to be moving flawlessly. The only concern I had was that the deed of the property was put in Victor's name. It should have been a joint tenancy. When I suggested we share the mortgage and the deed, he insisted that he wanted to handle it, and I reluctantly agreed. He pushed through the loan forcefully, and after various twists and turns, our new home was completed the following year. 2 weeks before the move, Heather came over after a long absence.
Long time no see, Reese. I heard the new house is finished. How exciting.
Yeah, it's been a while, Heather. Until then, I despised even seeing her face, but knowing we would soon be moving away gave me a sense of relief. However, right after that, she said something unbelievable.
We're moving in a little while, right? My room's in the back on the first floor, isn't it?
Huh? I couldn't comprehend what she just said about her room for a second. What do you mean by your room?
Oh, please. You know what I'm talking about.
You had a spacious ensuite made for me, right? Sure, we did, but that's because Victor insisted on making a guest room.
It's for my sake.
What? I immediately confronted Victor, seeking an explanation.
As she said, I had that room made for her.
Hold on. Does this mean she's moving in? I didn't agree to that.
Is there a problem? You know the house is in my name.
Wait, is that why you were so adamant about having your name only? He made a smug smile and said,
You're just realizing it now?
Watching our exchanges, Heather started giggling. Stunned, I stood there as he waved a piece of paper in front of me. What's that?
Take a look. It's a divorce petition form, and it's already signed.
You're kidding.
Do you really think I'd stay married to someone who defies me and my mom? Do it again and I'll submit it. Got it?
Are you seriously saying that?
Do you think I'm joking about something like this? I'm dead serious. A divorce would bring shame on you, wouldn't it?
He and Heather both smirked as they observed my reaction. Then she chimed in, taking the opportunity to belittle me.
Reese, for your own sake, you better start listening to us carefully from now on. After all, you're just a daughter-in-law. You should just keep quiet and obey. Got it?
Victor threw the form at me and left the living room with her. I had more than enough. I couldn't imagine living with those two for the rest of my life. I wasn't going to let them have their way. That was the moment when the anger I had been holding back erupted all at once. From the next day on, I started looking for another place while juggling my job, making slow progress with my moving preparations, and trying not to let them find out. I packed my belongings little by little, trying to remain inconspicuous. On the day before our move to the next house, they had gone out to see furniture, leaving me an opportunity. I moved my things into the apartment I had secretly arranged. The next day, just as I had expected, Heather called.
Hey, Reese, it's a moving day, and you've been out since last night. Where have you gone?
Well, I have some business to take care of. What's the matter?
What's the matter? I've brought some of my stuff to the new place, so open the door for me. Victor hasn't arrived yet either. Anyway, hurry up.
She was bossing me around, as if living together was a given. I decided to point out her misunderstanding. Heather, I don't know what you're getting wrong, but my move was yesterday.
What? Are you crazy? The move is today, isn't it?
No, it was yesterday. Well, at least my move was yesterday.
I really don't get what you're talking about. Your move is supposed to be on the same day as Victor's.
She was frantically yelling at me to hurry up and get there. I had been waiting for the opportunity to drop the bomb. I'm living alone from today.
Living alone?
It means please handle your move yourself. It doesn't concern me anymore.
What are you telling me, Reese?
She was clearly confused. So I continued. In fact, I filed for a divorce from your son. I have no obligation to care about you anymore.
Divorce? Wait, you better explain this.
I just did. Your son threatened me with a divorce. So I went to see a lawyer and filed a divorce petition.
Oh, Come to think of it, I recall something like that.
I can't bear living with insensitive people like you, and I refuse to continue playing a family. So, I decided to be single again.
Ugh, do you even know what you're saying?
At that point, Victor must have arrived, and I heard him asking what was going on. When he learned that I had filed for a divorce and moved to a different place, he angrily took the phone and started screaming.
You! What the heck do you think you're doing? What a selfish thing to do!
Who'd been selfish all this time? You agreed to cover the rent for your mom and decided to live together without asking me. Do you even understand how I felt while I was living with you guys?
Who cares? Just come back quickly. I won't accept the divorce.
Whatever you say, I simply accepted your threat. You do understand that it can't be reversed now, right?
Who do you think you're talking to? Just get back here now.
He, along with Heather, continued to berate me over the phone. Unable to bear it, I raised my voice as well. Come back? Who are you to say that? You threatened me with a divorce first. You keep imposing your own convenience on me. You're nothing but trash. I was surprised by my own fierceness. It was evidence of how much stress I kept inside me.
Wait, Reese, if we get divorced, what happens to the mortgage?
Who cares? You set it up on your own. You were the one who said, I want to handle this.
But it was based on our combined earnings.
I'm divorcing you, so I don't care. It's none of my business.
Darn you.
I can't stand being with a low human who can't even consider other people's feelings. I'd rather be alone than live with trash like you. Never get involved with me ever again. Then I hung up the phone. Of course, I made sure to block his calls as well. Afterward, it's needless to say what happened to that mother and son. Initially, Victor managed to pay the mortgage, but he hit his limit after 4 months. It was obvious that he couldn't have continued with the repayment of the loan that was set up by relying on my salary. As a result, he had to sell the new house. However, even after deducting the selling price, the mortgage remains. Currently, he lives in an apartment with Heather, struggling with the monthly payments. The life Heather envisioned is far from reality, marked by constant arguments between them. On the other hand, my life is incredibly comfortable now. I didn't share my new address with them, so there's no fear of ambush. I can live as I please in this new chapter of my life, and it truly makes me happy. While I didn't achieve my dream of owning a perfect home, that's perfectly fine with me. The best part of it all is being free from that mother-son duo.
I'm getting a divorce and starting my life over. Get out with that chubby child of yours.
My husband, without being asked, arrogantly narrated the beginning of his relationship with his lover and announced our breakup. The story was so full of misunderstandings that both my daughter and I were speechless in disbelief. Not knowing anything is a sin. Okay? You. Don't be surprised. That woman is... My name is Veronica. At the age of 40, I harbor resentment towards my expanding waistline that grows fuller with each passing year. I think it's time to start writing in my room, beat the flab, and go on a diet. This is a story related to my diet. A few years ago, I lived happily with my husband and daughter. The only thing that worries me is that my daughter Olivia is glued to the smartphone I bought her because she has to go to extra tutoring classes. However, that wasn't a significant issue. I find my daughter's slightly rebellious phase as she enters middle school endearing. I thought our family was happy and thriving. One day, as soon as my husband came home from work,
Starting today, my dinner can be something like rabbit food,
he declared. What? What? That crunchy stuff? You mean cereal? I asked.
No, not that. I prefer a plant-based diet. Make it vegetable-focused,
he said. Even though he mentioned a plant-based diet, he would always eat instant noodle or sweets after meals. With such a fussy eater, even though he's a grown adult, I wonder what kind of plant-based diet could be served to a husband who can't eat bell peppers. Even if I serve plenty of vegetables as instructed, I can't help but think he'll just eat up ending cup noodles anyway. Why suddenly pretend to be a vegetarian?
I'm not trying to be a vegetarian. I just thought I'd lose some weight.
My husband's words made my daughter and I burst out laughing. You couldn't even stick to abstinence from alcohol, so don't suddenly go for an extreme diet. Despite our opposition, my husband seemed determined to go on a diet. Thinking he would get bored in a few days, we prepared a plant-based diet to support him. However, surprisingly, this time he stuck with it without getting bored. He started meal restrictions, muscle training, night running, and even going to the gym. His once symbolic middle-aged paunch was gradually getting slimmer. This surprised both my daughter and me. We were puzzled, wondering about the change in his mindset from being someone skilled at giving up after a few days. This time, since he continued to abstain from alcohol, we couldn't help but wonder if during the company health check he was told that he has some illness that he hasn't shared with us, or if there are health concerns he's keeping to himself. What kind of change in mindset? I asked, but Arnold replied,
I just want to look cool.
That was the only surprising answer I received. Well, I'm a little concerned about it, but if it's a healthy and reasonable diet, I should support it. With that in mind, to assist with my husband's diet, I've been searching for healthy recipes, but as he loses weight, his eccentric behaviors become more noticeable. In the morning, after returning from running and preparing for work, my husband, standing in front of the bathroom mirror, would smile while fixing his hair. Holding a smartphone, he would imitate the trendy hairstyles from the searched images. He started buying clothes on his way home from work, and he began wearing accessories. However, his sense of style seems to be stuck around the second year of middle school. He favors t-shirts with dragon designs and likes to wear chunky chain necklaces, which my daughter finds uncool and very unpopular. Even neighbors started making somewhat rude comments like, "Has your husband recently changed a lot? Is everything okay?" Sorry to ask, but is he having an affair? Or, no offense, but with that kind of fashion, is he really not having an affair? These were some of the somewhat impolite things people said. But even my daughter asked, "Dad, you're not having an affair, right?" As she raised suspicions about her dad possibly having an affair, I, initially thinking his appearance might deter women, grew uneasy, considering the possibility of some curious individuals. One day during a holiday, my husband, who usually stayed home, began going out more to the gym and for runs, since starting his diet. On that particular day, he stood in front of the bathroom mirror, wearing a white suit. The appearance of a belated groom, or perhaps an outdated dancer, made me doubt if this was truly our bathroom. "Are you going somewhere today?" I couldn't help but ask.
Just shopping with a friend.
I thought it was a lie. "Oh, who is it?" I inquired.
My boss.
A male boss, right? It's surprising to treat him as a friend, but going out with a guy and dressing up in a suit?
Sorry, I'm running late, so I have to go.
Without giving a straightforward answer to my question, my husband hastily left the house. Needless to say, I suspected the possibility of an affair, as everyone said, because of his uncomfortable attitude. When I thought it might be suspicious if he came home late at night, my husband returned at 3 p.m. I wondered if he would return so early if he were having an affair, considering it was earlier than the curfew when our daughter was in elementary school. It might be my own unfounded assumption, but he's meeting with someone he can't usually spend time with. Isn't it normal to want to spend as much time together as possible? I've never cheated, and there's no one around me who has, so I regret only having knowledge from TV dramas. If it's not an affair, I can't understand why he came home unusually cheerful. However, from that day on, my husband never parted with his smartphone, and he started taking his diet more seriously than ever. One day,
I've lost a lot of weight, and I need to start adding some meat to my diet,
he said. So for dinner, I served a meat dish.
I measured my weight earlier, and it turns out I gained weight, so I don't need this after all,
he said, leaving the hamburger I made entirely uneaten and pushing it onto our daughter. Despite drinking beer every day, he now drinks carbonated water. His thoroughness is almost like he's a model or something. As a result, our daughter, who was forced to eat meals left by him, started gaining weight, in stark contrast to him. I say she can leave the portions he pushes onto her, but Olivia says, "I don't want to leave the food you cooked." She ends up eating the food, so I feel sorry for her. At this rate, because of my husband, our daughter will end up becoming chubby. However, my husband appears indifferent. Recently, he's been taking actions that imply he has no intention of concealing an affair, like making late-night phone calls and arriving home with a bag from a women's accessories brand. My daughter seems to have noticed and refers to her father with vulgar words like, "that jerk of a dad." Well, it's true, so I'll forgive her. Gradually, my husband has become more arrogant, specifying his meal preferences, and he eats the vegetables he brought home or complains if there's no carbonated water in the fridge.
If I get fat, it's your fault.
He started getting angry and throwing things. His transformation is so extreme that I wonder if he's been possessed by a diet ghost. It's possible that even his brain capacity has gone on a diet. My husband, who lost about 30 kilograms, says,
If only you were a bit more beautiful. Don't stand next to me. It lowers my status.
Misleading statements started to increase. I don't want to be told that my status is lowering by a man who, no matter how much weight he loses, looks like a sleepy gorilla. Gradually, my husband's words turned into a personal attack on me, and one day he said something like this:
I've got a new girlfriend, so I guess we're done with the family for today.
I was annoyed by my husband, who was boasting with a smug look, and even though neither my daughter nor I asked, he began recounting the story of how he met his girlfriend. According to my husband, fate brought them together just before he started his diet. One night, while drinking at the lounge of a hotel used for business entertainment, my husband fell in love at first sight with a woman at a distant table. Desperately striking up a conversation, they even exchanged contact information. When the truth came out, his companion turned out to be the daughter of a certain well-known company, naturally wealthy. Additionally, she was beautiful and slender, like a charming young woman. It seems my husband wanted to match up to her, so he started improving himself. After losing weight, he revamped his fashion and chose a white suit, intending to convey the message: "My confession is tailor-made to suit you." In response to his feelings, she replied, "I love your childlike purity." The two of them became a couple, and recently, he successfully proposed. He is now keeping quiet that he is married, and he has even taken off his ring in front of her to hide this fact. He's afraid of being exposed as married, fearing that it might make her dislike him.
I finally found someone I care about,
my husband said, tears welling up in his eyes. Well, I know the whole story, but oh well.
I'm getting divorced and starting over in life. Leave this house with that chubby child of yours.
With a confident gaze, he stared us down and displayed a triumphant expression. Our daughter, insulted as a chubby child, had veins of anger visible on her face.
You really don't know, do you?
Upon our daughter's words, my husband had a blank expression.
No what?
He asked in return. I've long noticed that you were having an affair. I've been gathering information for the divorce, so I know everything about the current situation, even the things you don't know.
But Mom, Dad says she's his soulmate. Maybe it's okay not to know, you know.
True. When our daughter glanced at him and smiled, my husband, looking flustered, eagerly took the bait.
Hold on. What do you know about me and her? Is there something going on?
If she's your soulmate, I don't think it's a big deal, right?
That's right, Mom.
As my daughter and I smirked, my husband impatiently urged me to hurry up and talk. I found out through a detective's investigation. Did you know your girlfriend is a really famous person?
What are you talking about?
In response to my question, my husband looked at me with a puzzled expression. That girl underwent surgery to become a woman, you know. Originally, she was a man. She's so cute that she became popular among young people for her social media and makeup tutorial videos. Olivia was following her too, it seems. My husband stood there, looking dumbfounded, as if he didn't understand what was being said. He's not familiar with social media or the internet. He mostly only reads the news. So, it's not surprising if he didn't know about her existence. I didn't know either.
Look, see? This is Dad's girlfriend, right?
Saying so, my daughter showed her father the top screen of his girlfriend's social media. On the profile, it was written, "I used to be a boy, but now I'm a woman. Moving forward, I'll continue to work on myself and strive to embrace my feminine side even more." While technically being the person my husband had an affair with, she herself sees him as a single man. Looking at her profile and considering the challenges she has faced in her past, rather than harboring any resentment, it makes me want to support her.
Really?
He muttered, still glued to our daughter's phone, seemingly bewildered by the information he had just received. He scrolled through several photos of her, attempting to find any distinctions from his lover. Well, Olivia and I were planning to proceed with a divorce, so you don't need to worry about us. My husband, who had been told that his wife and daughter intended to abandon him, seemed shocked, despite being the one who initiated the divorce. It was ironic how he didn't want to be abandoned, even though he was willing to abandon us.
That's right, Dad. If you're so nonchalant about your destined partner, we won't say anything. And just be happy with her.
No, I mean, I thought she was a girl. If that's the case, I'd rather live with you guys.
What? You claim to love her so much, but now you say if she used to be a man, you'd lose interest?
Ugh, seriously. Your affection is unbelievably shallow. Ah, so that's why he tried to abandon us.
As soon as he learned the true gender of his destined partner, my husband turned his back on her. Both my daughter and I felt genuine contempt. Whether she used to be a man or whatever, if you've come to love someone to the point of considering abandoning your family, then cherish them till the end. It's not just about us, but isn't it rude to play with someone's feelings?
Well, it's a bit different from that.
In response to my sermon, my husband looked visibly unsettled. What's the difference? Look at her post. Isn't this the day you proposed to her? I showed him a post that she likely wrote on the day he proposed, saying, "I'm happy to meet someone who accepts all of me. I had given up on living with someone, but now I want to become a new me, supporting each other with my important partner." The post also included a photo of a ring, presumably the one he gave her. According to the detective's investigation, she had revealed she was originally a man when they first met. But my husband, probably intoxicated, took it as a joke and said,
"Then we can be good friends."
The girl, often criticized for her past, was deeply moved by his words and accepted his vigorous advances. She went into the relationship believing that he had accepted all of her. It seems like she spoke about meeting a wonderful partner, expressing how happy she was in videos on social media and among people around her. She probably came to love my husband, who may not be cool at all with his face and fashion, because she felt he accepted all of her. She seems so pitiful that it makes me want to cry. I tell my husband the stories that my daughter and I know without holding anything back.
"I messed up. What do I do?"
My husband crumbled to his knees.
"It seems like I misunderstood her. Shouldn't we give it another try?"
My husband says, but there's no way I would go along with such an invitation. I actually wanted to divorce as soon as I found out about the affair, but I just hesitated because it took time to look into alimony and find a good detective. It's not like I have any sentimental feelings. It was easy for me and my daughter. No, you will live the rest of your life alone, I told my husband. I'm not going to follow a man who was willing to easily discard me and our daughter. Moreover, misunderstanding her is just too rude. My daughter and I ignored my husband's attempts to stop us and left the house as we were told. Afterward, my husband confessed everything to his girlfriend, apologized, and sought separation. However, she got furious, and naturally, it turned into a dispute. Hiding the fact that he was married was awful, and considering she had been honest about her gender, I understand why she would want to express her thoughts. In the end, my husband turned her parents against him, and she, having a good lawyer on her side, demanded compensation for violating her chastity. But the story doesn't end there. She had reported on social media that she had a partner, and then she posted again on social media that she had broken up with her partner. Although she didn't mention names, she poured out the details of how they reached the breakup on social media. Looking back, posting such revealing content might have been the lawyer's idea. After all, she didn't know that my husband was married. If the details of this situation became known to the public, she might be viewed with suspicion for possibly knowing about the affair. As a famous person, she might face public outrage. As a precaution, she might have been advised to actively communicate to the public that she genuinely didn't know he was married. The video where she openly talked about everything was both too pitiful, bringing tears, and likely difficult for her to share. However, by telling her story, almost everyone sided with her. On the other hand, my husband was identified from her posts, and he faced intense backlash from her fans on the internet. His face photo became widespread, and it seems that malicious individuals even visited the company. Thanks to this, my husband was viewed with disdain by female colleagues at work, labeled as a cheating man, and subjected to gossip. There were even fans of the girl within the company, and he seemed to have experienced an uncomfortable atmosphere, being criticized as a man who lacked understanding of gender. And in a moment of impulsiveness, he resigned from the company. However, finding a new job for a middle-aged man who isn't proficient with computers is not so simple. Currently, he's making a living with Uber Eats and part-time jobs, while also paying compensation and child support to us. Occasionally, he falls behind on payments, and at such times, my daughter goes to angrily confront him about abandoning his responsibilities as a parent. My daughter is strong. I was told to leave, but during the asset division in the divorce proceedings, I outsmarted my husband, and the house remained ours. Originally, I had a job, so as long as we have the house, life with my daughter is not particularly difficult. Even my daughter, I thought we'd have trouble making ends meet without him, but it turns out we're stronger together than I thought. She laughed. Since separating from my husband, it seems like our eating habits have gone back to normal, and as a result, my daughter has also slimmed down. As two women, the only trouble we face is dealing with pests, like bugs. We always play rock, paper, scissors to decide who tackles the extermination. However, gradually, my daughter has become less afraid of killing bugs. As a parent, I worry about the future of my overly resilient daughter.
Mom, aren't you going to remarry?
Although my daughter asks me such questions, for the time being, I want to cherish the delicate period my daughter is going through and prioritize our time as a mother and daughter duo. In fact, I'd be fine with just the two of us forever. Living together as women is somewhat carefree and comfortable. Honestly, I prefer the ease of our current life over when I was married. I hope to continue spending relaxed and peaceful days with my daughter in the future. Well, I'm off to work again today.
Overtime again? Hasn't it been too frequent lately? I pointed out my husband's excessive overtime. My husband runs a vegetable wholesaling company. I've been working alongside him to support the business. However, recently he had been working late into the night every day. I was concerned about his excessive overtime. That's why I brought it up. But my husband frowned and responded irritably.
Shut up! There's no helping it. The recent high prices are affecting us. I'm working hard to protect our company, so don't complain.
Then I will help with the overtime. When I suggested that, my husband widened his eyes and shook his head in a fluster.
No, you should go home and rest. I'm enough by myself. I can concentrate better when I'm working alone.
He spoke as if I were a hindrance, which secretly irritated me. But I heard that a business similar to ours fell victim to a robbery. Working alone late into the night during such times. When I mentioned that, my husband chuckled.
It's just a coincidence that another business was targeted. You worry too much. It's annoying when you are like that. Forget about me and go home to sleep. You're getting in the way of work.
My husband pushed me out of the office. Reluctantly, I said, "Take care," and left. But I couldn't help but worry. Maybe I should install more security cameras and take precautions. While pondering this, I looked back at the office. That's when I noticed some moving shadows in the darkness. What is that? Ah! My name is Violet, and I'm 39 years old. I currently run a vegetable wholesaling company with my husband Frank. We had an arranged marriage, and our relationship has been relatively good. My late in-laws also appreciated and cherished me, saying that a capable daughter-in-law had come. Thanks to that, I was well regarded by those around me at my husband's company. After my father-in-law passed away, my mother-in-law and the board members had a discussion and decided to have my husband and me take over the company. There was a strong trust from the employees, and they would sometimes jokingly say things like, "As long as Violet is here, everything will be fine." Even after my mother-in-law passed away, my husband and I worked hard, even though we had our disagreements at times. On this day, I had been complaining to my husband when I arrived at work. Since my husband didn't help with household chores, I ended up expressing my discontent in a stern tone. In response, one of the employees jokingly remarked, "The president is completely under Violet's control, isn't he? I'm not really bossing him around. I'm just asking him to take out the trash before going to work. And putting socks in the washing machine without rolling them up is something obvious, right?" When I complained like that to the employees, my husband genuinely apologized.
My bad. I sometimes forget. I will make sure to do it next time.
"You always say that, but you never actually do it, right?" I replied with a sigh. I often complain about household matters and such, and perhaps it's because of these frequent exchanges that I've intentionally earned the reputation of being a controlling wife. However, when it comes to actual work, I intend to be aware of my place. I was serious about my work on the field, but I also provided strong support for my husband, who had a tendency to be easily swayed in his role as a company's president. Around the beginning of May, my husband informed me that he wanted to talk. In the office, he had an unusually serious expression on his face. What's this talk about?
Actually, I'm thinking of hiring this person.
There is a resume on the desk. The resume photo is of an attractive but somewhat listless looking woman. Checking her background, she's 45 years old, the same age as my husband, and attended the same primary and middle schools. Do you happen to know her?
Oh yes, she's Margaret. She's my childhood friend. I bumped into her the other day. She's a divorcee, and it seems she returned to her hometown with her child last month. She's a single mother, you see. She mentioned that she's been struggling to find a job and is having a hard time. I thought I would give her a helping hand due to our old friendship.
I listened to my husband's words and offered my input. Looking at her background alone, she seemed like a suitable fit for our company.
She seems to have some office experience from her temp jobs, and I believe she can do the job. What do you think?
Well, I think it's a good idea. However, let's start her with warehouse work like the other new employees. I convey my thoughts, and my husband nods with relief. His childhood friend, who joined the company as a mid-career hire, quickly became friendly and familiar with her new colleagues. Looks like she will fit in well. That's good. I feel relieved observing Margaret's demeanor, but I was still troubled at the office. The reason for my concern was a recent impact of rising prices, which had been giving both sellers and buyers a headache. As I reviewed the financial records, a sigh escaped naturally. My husband had been working late at the company after employees had left quite often lately. Sometimes he even worked late into the next day. This had been going on for about a month, and I couldn't help but worry. More overtime? Isn't it getting excessive lately? I pointed out my husband's frequent overtime. However, he frowned deeply and responded with irritation.
Shut up! There's nothing I can do about it. It's because of this inflation. I'm working hard to protect our company, so don't complain.
He retorts with a raised voice. Lately, it seemed like he was getting more irritable and annoyed when I talked to him, possibly due to stress. Then maybe I should stay and help with the overtime. When I offered, my husband's eyes widened, and he shook his head in a fluster.
No, really. You should go home and rest. I can manage on my own. I can concentrate better when working alone.
It felt like he was implying that I was a hindrance when I was around. My husband disliked me staying for overtime. He believed that he could work more efficiently alone. But I heard recently that a similar business got robbed. Isn't it dangerous to be here all alone so late at night? The theft targeted the safe and the goods that were supposed to be transported. And it was said that thieves were after money and food. I shivered at the thought of the worsening security situation. If my husband kept working late all along, there was a risk of becoming a target. I suggested it might be better to finish work earlier, but my husband just chuckled.
It's just a coincidence that another business in the same industry got targeted. There is no guarantee we'll be next. You worry too much. It's irritating. Forget about me and go home and get some rest. You're getting in the way of my work.
But
you're being too persistent. Can you listen to the company president, me? Since when did you become the boss here?
My husband pushed me out of the office in frustration. There was no point in arguing with him when he was in this mood. Reluctantly, I said, "Take care," and went outside. But I couldn't help but worry. Our budget was tight under the current circumstances, but maybe we should consider increasing the number of security cameras. While thinking about that, I looked back at the office. That's when I noticed something moving in the darkness. I didn't think it was a gang of robbers. Ah! Startled, I froze in place. But then, I heard a cat's meow coming from the moving shadow. It was just a cat. It looked like a shadow of a person to me. It seemed like I had been on edge due to our earlier discussion about robbers. Relieved, I made my way home. The installation of the security cameras was scheduled when my husband was on a business trip. He would likely oppose it, so this was a convenient time. With the increased number of cameras, I felt a bit more at ease. A few days later, there was a personnel change for Margaret. My husband had mentioned that due to a shortage of staff, Margaret, who had office experience, would be transferred to an office position, and that decision had been officially made. I felt a bit uneasy about this sudden personnel change, but it was my husband's decision. I didn't plan to make a fuss about it. In reality, Margaret seems willing to take on overtime work, which my husband found helpful. It bothered me a little that my husband opposed me working overtime, but was fine with Margaret. Frank had mentioned that working with non-family members created a sense of professionalism and made it easier than working overtime as a couple. I tilted my head, observing my husband's behavior. On a certain day, for my husband's birthday, I was waiting at home with a few employees to surprise him. Hearing it was a surprise party, even people from the same industry like my Uncle Milton, who was my father-in-law's brother, and executives from our regular clients came over. We used to have surprise parties like this quite often in the past. Every time, my husband would be surprised, but also very happy. This month, with the efforts of all our employees, we finally started making a little profit. I thought it was a good time for a somewhat grand party. Today, I had confirmed that my husband didn't have too much work, but he still hadn't come back. I apologized for keeping everyone waiting. I told him to come back as early as possible today.
Well, if he's busy, there's nothing we can do. He will be back soon.
Despite what my uncle said, there was no sign of my husband returning. I called him several times, but he didn't answer. Is he taking too long? The robber hasn't been caught yet, and I'm starting to worry. A sense of unease crossed my mind. Concerned, I remembered that I could check the footage from the security cameras I had recently installed using my smartphone. When I did, what is this? I stood there pale, shocked, and my employees looked at my phone in surprise. On my smartphone, there was a video of my husband engaged in an affair in his office. Upon closer inspection, it appeared that his affair partner was none other than Margaret.
What's going on here?
Even Milton, who was known for being devoted to his wife, looked disgusted, as if he was watching something filthy. This must be some kind of mistake. In a rush to remain calm, I accidentally turned up the volume on my phone. The indecent sounds of my husband and his affair partner filled the room, and his infidelity was inadvertently exposed to the employees and important clients. Everyone stood there, their faces drained of color, at a loss for words. In this situation, there was no room for a surprise party. We decided to call it a night. The next morning, my husband came home late, and when I asked him what had happened, he casually replied,
I was out with Milton, and we were drinking late, and he let me stay over.
Oh, with Milton, you say? Well, Milton was at our house last night. Anger welled up inside me as my husband told that blatant lie. It seemed that he had been lying about working late for a while now. Frank wanted to get me out of the office as quickly as possible because he wanted to meet with Margaret. I was in the way. I can't forgive him. Just watch. I've had enough. I hired a private detective to investigate the affair, and I had my employees look into Margaret's behavior at work. It turned out that she had been slacking off, arriving late, and there were even reports of her engaging in romantic behavior with my husband when they thought nobody was watching. Apparently, they thought no one at the company had noticed. What's more, that mew I heard outside the office, which I thought was a cat, it turns out it wasn't a cat at all. Margaret was imitating a cat to cover up her secret meetings with my husband. An employee who was still at the scene witnessed it all. The employee who witnessed the affair couldn't bring themselves to speak to me, probably out of concern. Finally, I handed the detective agency's report to my husband when he returned from work. What on earth is this? You're having an affair with Margaret, weren't you? You traitor! You're the worst!
What? Why the sudden outburst?
At first, my husband seemed shaken with a pale face, but he started to become more defiant when he realized he couldn't escape.
Well, if I've been caught, there's no helping it. Yeah, that's right. Margaret, who is prettier than you and easier to get along with, is more appealing. You make it sound like it was all my fault in the first place, but it was you yourself who caused me to cheat on you. I'm sick and tired of your constant nagging.
He began shifting the blame for his affair onto me, saying that it was my fault due to my nagging. I couldn't help but be infuriated by that. Don't blame others. The fact that you have a gullible personality is a root cause, isn't it?
Shut up! It's because of your nagging that I got sick of it. If you have a problem, I will divorce you right now. I will even fire you from the company.
My husband became angry and threatened to divorce and fire me. Fine, understood. I had been prepared for such words and had already packed my belongings. With only the essentials, I left the house and moved to a hotel. A week later, I was awakened by a barrage of phone calls from my husband. I ignored the call, but it persisted, so I had no choice but to answer it. And my husband sounded impatient over the phone.
Hey, what's going on here? All the employees have quit. Is this your doing?
I haven't done anything. It's entirely the employees' decision. They can't follow you anymore. So I've already arranged jobs for them at Milton's company. My husband was left speechless by my words. It appears that the employees noticed Margaret, who was initially a friendly and hardworking person, undergo a drastic change in attitude since the time my husband started having an affair. They seems to be harboring resentment toward my husband for being aware of her deteriorating work attitude and silently tolerating it. The strain from work had taken its toll, and the employees couldn't bear it any longer. At that point, when my husband fired me, they had had enough of him.
Even our major client decided they couldn't continue their deals with us.
And so, my husband's company went bankrupt. I divorced him without any sympathy and managed to get a decent amount of compensation. It wasn't a fortune, but it felt like the perfect final blow. Later, I heard that Margaret seems to have approached my ex-husband for money. Perhaps because of his position as a small-scale CEO, she assumed he had a lot of wealth. Margaret seems to have had a man who was supporting her financially, a man who was, in fact, a member of the recently infamous gang of robbers that got arrested. She was arrested for hiding that man. I had heard that Margaret was a single mother, but I wondered what had happened to her child. It turned out that Margaret had pretended to be a single mother to gain sympathy from my ex-husband. She had claimed that her child was in a sensitive phase of adolescence, and thus had him not to meet the child. Due to this, my ex-husband was unaware of the truth. In reality, Margaret's ex-husband had been raising the child, and Margaret and the child were estranged. Furthermore, my ex-husband had been burdened with Margaret's debts. Frank is really a gullible man. It appeared he had been coerced into taking on Margaret's debts, depleting his savings almost entirely. A while later, I heard a rumor from a former employee that they had seen what seems to be my ex-husband as a homeless person near the company's former location. After that, I was entrusted with a subsidiary of Milton's company and gradually improved its performance. The employees continued to work comfortably, almost as they used to. The somewhat unfunny tale of discovering a thief inside while implementing external security measures remains a topic of discussion to this day.